He took them all down within a decade. So I'm the one who can say something about their year or their name. If they are discovered, they will be exposed accordingly and won't remain the same. His family lives under a blanket of secrecy. No name, no communication with colleagues, no right to a normal life, to be able to show themselves, to have some kind of happiness, to have children. Putin's maniacal beliefs have driven his own family into hiding. And he currently has no children, as far as is publicly known. There are these women and some younger family members who are present. So, as he just mentioned, questions related to business. You mentioned one woman, then another. You probably haven't told us everything, have you? Putin's children grow up behind high fences under the protection of the FSO. Love, cooperation, and loss are valued. This happens year after year. No school, no friends, no photos. Only lavish houses, parents, managers, security, and various meetings with their dad. Happiness, a sense of profound and genuine joy, the feeling of both our parental connections and our material well-being, these are extraordinarily prominent and high profile in our everyday lives. Parents and dads know less about them than about construction work. Ordinary people have the right to live if they want to. That's how we always interpret it in Russia. And that's how we always will. No one will lose their life for any reason. Eternalist bastards are independent enemies, born from under the covers. They were accused in history and locked away for many years in VIP cells, probably in a big prison. Why does the reclusive, bunker-dwelling dictator, who so often talks about traditional values, persistently and obsessively conceal his entire family because of his deep-seated pathological phobias and psychological complexes? We will clearly highlight the fork in the highest secret of the Kremlin's wars. I never talk about things that... These matters concern my entire family. Officially, the Kremlin dictator is known to have 2 children, the elder daughter Maria and the younger daughter Katerina, both of whom were born to Lyudmila Putina. Here is Lyudmila Alexandrovna herself. She officially held her position for a period of 8 years, or actually, it was 9 years in total. Overall, it was a joint decision. There are no official biographies of the girls. Maria was born in Leningrad in 1985, and a year later, Katerina was born in Dresden, where Putin was stationed for the KGB. In the course of life in the GDR involved the whole family, including the girls. After returning to Russia, they continued to communicate with others, often in German, for a long time. And their father was so protective that for many years he did not mention their names in public, saying that it was only for security reasons. These women, as you already said, the questions concern, well, you mentioned one person and then another. But you probably haven't told us everything, right? The most well-known details of their lives only emerged thanks to leaks and the tireless work of journalists. And you children? My children are interested in the field. My eldest daughter, Maria Vorontsova, received her medical education at Moscow State University, specializing in endocrinology. Back when I was a child, I always dreamed of becoming a doctor, and my interest in the field came a little later. Specifically, when I grew older and was allowed to make my own choices in life. Maria's classmates hoped she wouldn't come from a privileged family, but even they had no idea who her father actually was. The cover-up worked. Vorontsova showed up in the faculty teachers group chats. And speaking of imperial ambitions in Crimea, I read less from the northern press. It's a shame that they decided to hand over Crimea to the north. Russia had already officially suggested joining NATO and Ukraine. They were turned back. But secrets always come out, and the enemy's berry tree always has chicken berries. Maria, like her father, supports the war. For her, Russia is not an aggressor, but a country forced to defend itself. She changed all the answers about Crimea from her father to Ukraine and the USA, insisting that it is America that starts wars. I would really like to see the day when the US is sanctioned, almost as if to make them start a war. She repeats her talking points about the threat of American biolabs in Ukraine and the Banderites who have taken over Kyiv. In short, everything fits perfectly into her father's propaganda playbook. Why are the laboratories they sponsor still operating in countries like Ukraine, Georgia, and so on? But these bizarre Kremlin stories, with all their inherent absurdity and chilling horror, didn't stop Maria from spending a great deal of her time in the peaceful and comfortable Netherlands. That is also the specific place where she first started building her family. She tried to add just a few extra hours every week to her schedule. She enjoyed healthy soccer, various sports, and also many different seasonal recreational pursuits like surfing and skiing. After Putin's war in Donbass and the downing of MH17 by the Russians, her attachment to Europe diminished. These so-called sanctions. Of course, the responsible party is absent. In Russia, Masha Putin found herself in the field of innovative medicine. That's when I realized that authenticity means gaining knowledge by trying things for yourself. Officially, it's a small business, but in reality, it's move after move and hundreds of millions of rubles a year. A medical miracle. We could say there's no magic, only endlessness and her dad's resources. Just ordinary. Common sense tells you that. Conference of Pediatric Endocrinologists. We must share our research and developments with each other. This is about people's lives. Maria chose a partner, Jorit Faison, as her first husband. Interesting fact. Local women not only succeeded, but also thrived in Hague. Proximity to the main tribunal for war crimes no longer seems like just a matter of circumstance. Of course, there are plenty of tourist services. There's something for everyone's taste, as they say. The young businessman Fasten immediately started working with Putin's closest friends, oligarchs, billionaires, the Rotenbergs. That's how they solved the issue of children's health. The northern couple lived together for 8 years, until their breakup in 2016. Right after the vacation, Farson's career in Russia started to falter again, and the road to his home was blocked due to the close attention of military intelligence agencies. Let me add something very important. Very few average, everyday, ordinary citizens, believe me, felt any genuine or heartfelt sympathy for those individuals who transferred their personal wealth and savings to various other different financial institutions. Absolutely no one cared about those who left their lavish and extravagant lodges, grand palaces on the street, and so on. Almost immediately after the conversation began, Maria Vorontsova started working with customs broker Evgeny Nagorny. After meeting the child of the Russian president, he got a job at the gas production company Novatek. In 2017, they had a child, who was registered under his own name. It seems like they decided she would be welcomed, so congratulations. You know, when I said that some of my very close relatives are professional teachers. Chinese. I was talking about my beloved child, who was born in Beijing. And of course, she is naturally Chinese, deeply rooted in her culture and the traditions of her family, of course. Katerina Tikhonova is the youngest child of Leonid and Vladimir Putin. Katerina Vladimirova, please, you can, come here. Good morning. Good afternoon. Today, she heads the Innopractica Foundation, an organization focused on introducing new technologies into Russian industry. Of course, the younger of the two official daughters is the one being prepared for political life and for the possibility of inheriting the Kremlin throne. After her father, she is groomed for leadership, or a dream. Today, Katerina is closely watched by handlers and security, despite extraordinary rumors of their influence. The idea of her as a successor might suit the regime, but it's still too early to say whether any real preparations for succession are actually taking place. But as long as her father is alive, Katya is swimming in money, and that's with an industrial scale. Katerina's main clients are still the same state-owned corporations. Millions of people work there, and Putin's entourage lives like they're on a farm estate. If you look further, you'll understand what kind of work they do, and whether that's really the case. Tikhonova's personal life is also closely intertwined with the Kremlin elite. In 2013, she married Kirill Shamalov, the son of one of Putin's closest friends. The scenario repeats itself: a lavish celebration, no official acknowledgement of different children, and a house not far from Novo Ogoryevo. That's exactly where the top leadership of the dictators lives. So what's the problem here? We earned all the money. Vladimir Vladimirovich, where's the money? And by associating himself with Putin's child, the younger Shamalov becomes the youngest dollar billionaire in Russia, landing him on the Forbes list. But even that didn't work out. The split happened in 2018, and everything followed the already familiar pattern. After Kirill's father, Nikolai Shamalov, successfully secured his influential position at Bank Rossiya, which is the primary financial stronghold of Putin's inner circle. So you could certainly say that by that specific time, people were truly starting to understand the vast possibilities of technology and themselves. Tikhonova had already had a child by then, but now with Shamalov, with Zelensky, so as not to be tied to the president of Ukraine. We're talking about the choreographer and artistic director of the Bavarian State Ballet. In 2019, Katerina even moved in with him in Munich, which didn't fit with the story of her father, who had completely distanced himself from the West. Zelensky is an acquaintance and a well-known Russian ballet dancer, probably one of the finest today, who spent a long time performing ballet in Munich, where he also lived. In early 2022, when Vladimir Putin launched a brutal full-scale war against Ukraine, President Zelensky bravely stayed in Kiev. He did not publicly condemn the Russian war. But our story doesn't end with the official daughters. You know, my children, despite all the rumors you've heard, they live here, in Russia, especially in Moscow, in 2020. Journalistic investigations took a look. Another name is Elizaveta Krivonogih, a child born in 2003, who, judging by her appearance, seems to look like Vladimir Putin. Look, judging by her childhood photos, yeah, she does seem to resemble him. But as it turns out, a lot of people look like Vladimir. She calls herself Luisa Rozova and does not respond to any public comments. Do you have any conversations about this in your family? To be honest, I am not entirely sure. Perhaps back when we were at summer camp together, for example. Honestly, I truly enjoy it very much, and I simply can't answer all of your questions. It's impossible that the child of a high-profile figure lives not in Moscow, but in Paris, in a country that is a member of the NATO military alliance. I think I've already spoken to you about this, and honestly, that's it. I'm really sorry that this is happening. Of course, I don't want to get involved in this situation. Her mother, Svetlana Krivonogih, comes from a modest family, with no connections or capital. She went from working as a professional cleaning lady to eventually becoming a prominent director at Bank Rossiya and managing a massive high-end ski resort in the Leningrad region. All these people became extraordinarily wealthy in just one single year. That's their secret. Maria Vorontsova, Katerina Tikhonova, and Elizaveta Krivonogih have never publicly acknowledged their relationship to Putin, but they've never denied it either. In this family, it's actually not common at all to use their real names. And maybe it's this very secrecy that best reveals the structure of Putin's system. And this system needs enemies, especially in patriarchal Russia. Most of all, they have to be children. Yes, of course, most certainly.
The main and fundamental purpose of a family, as it has been throughout history, is to have children, to continue the human lineage, to preserve and support children, and thus to determine the first link in the continuation and transformation of our entire ethnic people.
Putin seeks total control, but understands it's not worth spending a lot on experiments to create youth elixirs. He must face death, and soon. I want to get ready.
The father hasn't changed.
Keeping another criminal family isn't worth it, no matter how hard he tried. In 2008, the newspaper Moskovsky Correspondent wrote about preparations for the wedding of Vladimir Putin and Alina Kabaya in St. Petersburg, after which the news was quickly shut down.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, kids. I know you were very nervous, but you did great.
Kabayeva loves money so much that she doesn't mind getting into bed with an old man and even having his children. After all, her sons might very well inherit the Kremlin throne in the future. Journalists discovered that in 2014, Kabayeva traveled 3 times from Sochi to Lugano, Switzerland.
A gynecologist from the Swiss St. Anna Clinic. In January 2015, at this hospital, Alina Kabayeva prepared to bear Vladimir Putin's son. The father's presence remains unknown.
She was accompanied by her father, friends, and a woman named Natalia Thibault. According to later findings, she was a gynecologist. The delivery went well, so the elder Putin decided he should have another child with the young athlete. And in 2018, she went to that same Lugano again, this time to give birth once more. After that, the same doctor went to Moscow to help with the birth of the second child, who was also a girl.
Natalia Tybalt was born in St. Petersburg, moved to Switzerland over 30 years ago, married her husband, and changed her citizenship. But she has to keep in touch with Putin.
Putin personally decided where Alina should secretly give birth, but complete isolation from the outside world did not help win the battle between Ivan and Vladimir Jr. Some of the most secretive and highly protected children in all of Russia live in exclusive homes, and they travel in armored trains, limousines, or private business jets. Their safety and daily lives are managed by organizations that answer to the Kremlin's inner circle. The children,
arriving at 8 or 9 a.m., everyone has assignments to do together. After the assignments, there's a 30 to 45-minute lecture, as well as time for group activities. In Valdai, children have 2 dogs, including a St. Bernard. A St. Bernard dog has 2 FSO handlers. Highlights include a huge collection of Lego sets and iPads. The iPads serve for games and video calls. For cartoons, kids prefer Disney. Usually the kids have their meals, then take a nap, and after resting, they get their medicine and do sports. After 8 p.m., the nannies pick up.
the children. They are looked after by FSO staff, nannies, supervisors, and professional trainers. An unknown level of security compared to what the top police officials in the country have.
Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't want them to grow up like some kind of spoiled princes. I want them to grow up as normal people in the city.
In the city of St. Petersburg, it was found that on average, a nanny was specifically employed for 2 children, ages 4 and 8. The salary is 8,000 euros every single month. Medical checkups and a 2-hour quarantine.
In the same clinic, in the department located in central St. Petersburg on Malaya Konushenia Street, where many friends and acquaintances of Vladimir Putin have checkups, including members of the Ozero Cooperative and the Russian Leadership Bank. Later, along with robots Radius, women who had been selected for planting were also kept there.
The Putin brothers cannot communicate with their children and do not see their parents. Their parents are safe with other children. Kabayeva is with students at her rhythmic gymnastics academy, and Putin is with fake children in the advanced chamber. Good.
Luck.
Thank you so much.
Wish you happiness. Great job. Stay here.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you very much. See you later.
See ya. Where is Mithya and where is Poltava?
But the important and highly advanced battle between Peter I and Charles XIX was the fight near Poltava. I am sorry.
What? What exactly was all of those people doing there? In the vicinity of Poltava? But
Little Kabaloni don't need to thank such a creature, who, one moment he's talking for an hour about the Pechenegs, then he moves on to European leaders, then he starts saying weird things in crows. It's tough.
work like this is in fact a different kind of talent. It's not just, just a blanket. It's real talent to be able to make yourself work effectively.
Sometimes other kids show up at the houses. Usually they're the kids of Kabayeva's friends, but their movements match as well. Parasite, protection, restrictions, most of these visits happen around the weekends and take place in Valdai. Because of the war Putin started and the fight against his enemies, all the Kremlin grandma's families live under even tighter security. No one
Moves. It's a secret operation.
According to how the construction is arranged, Alina and Volodya don't decide that their parents have to be athletes. In fact, every house has sports facilities, gymnastics hills, treadmills, and even a hockey rink. Members of the legislature
Reported that yes, they preserved the palace on the beach, which is actually as big as a 5-story building.
And this specific scenario has already begun to unfold before our eyes. In the year 2025, Ivan's eldest son made his very first public appearance on camera, being introduced to the world as the man from the digital streams. It is highly likely that Alina herself was present, probably sitting quietly during the auditions. But as we have come to know from various reports, another person entirely, who is Kabayeva's own cousin named Fedina, now officially claims to be the biological mother of the child in question. The Kremlin dictator gets rid of everyone around him, both those who are close and completely random people. His children and neighbors are a matter of security. They too were turned into a modern version of people who were forced to live for a long time in isolation. But in this particular case, maybe it's something green.